Hey everybody, it's Molly with AllEars, and I am here today with a brand new video. Today we're going all around the world on a big scavenger hunt. That's right, we're going to be going around World Showcase here at Epcot, looking for those details, those Easter eggs, those hidden gems that make Disney parks so special. I hope you got your walking shoes on because we're going through 11 countries today. I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. Let's get to it. A cool thing to note about World Showcase in general is that each of the pavilions take up the same amount of real estate when you're looking at them from the lagoon side. The Imagineers didn't want any country to take up more space or look bigger and better than another, so they made sure they all looked the same from the lagoon side. However, when you start going back into the countries, that's when you can see that they're bigger. Some are bigger than others, and that all varies based on how many attractions, restaurant shows, country involvement. That's what determines how big they are once you start getting back into them. But from here, they're all one pie and everybody gets an equal slice. Another important thing to note about World Showcase in general is that you definitely need good walking shoes because it's 1.2 miles from Canada to Mexico. That doesn't even count walking in from Future World if you get dropped off at the front of the park. All the way around the world, traversing through all 11 of these pavilions is again 1.2 miles. So get your good kicks on. Another cool thing about World Showcase in general, have you ever thought about which of the two countries you enter first when you're coming from Future World? It's either Canada or Mexico. And that's not at random, that's not a coincidence. That's because you're entering from the United States, you're in Disney World, you're in Florida, and you are traveling to America's neighbors, which are Canada or Mexico. Another thing you'll notice, or not notice actually, but another thing that was intentional is the fact that the ground is this kind of brownish reddish hue. That was chosen on purpose because they wanted the ground to make the landscape, which is mostly green around World Showcase, pop. So they did red, which is the opposite of green on the color wheel, so that way your pictures look extra perfect. This is the same tactic they did on Main Street USA in the Magic Kingdom. That's why that sidewalk is red, because it makes the blue and the greens pop. Hello from our first country. I'm in Canada, eh? Sorry to my Canadian friends, I just had to do that. But besides being one of the most beautiful countries in World Showcase, it's got this amazing Victoria Gardens here behind me that you can go check out. You can go see the brand new movie Canada Far and Wide, and you can check out an authentic piece of art. And I'm talking about these totem poles up here. One of these things is not like the other. As you start entering back in through the pavilion, you'll notice that there are 3 totem poles at the top of the stairs. 1, 2, and 3. And you can probably tell there's something different about these two than this one. And that's because this one, which is on your left, is an authentic totem pole that was carved by master artist David Buxley on stage in 1998. And it's estimated that this thing weighs over 700 pounds. These two over here on the right were made out of fiberglass, and they're not actually all one pole like that one is. They're pieces that have been put together to replicate a totem pole. This is that David Buxley carved totem pole made out of a cedar tree, so that legitimately is wood. And it's pretty incredible when you look at it. And it's even cooler that he carved it on stage, so if you were here in 1998, you could have watched him do it in progress. And in fact, if you were here, please let me know, because I think that is awesome. Hello there, friends. Welcome to our second. That's Australian. I don't know how to do a British accent, but you best believe I'm going to try it at every single country. Anyway, welcome to the second country on our tour, the United Kingdom. And there's a bunch of fun things to look for, like right here, the tea shop is actually modeled after Anne Hathaway's home. No, not Princess Mia Thermopolis of Genovia. I mean William Shakespeare's wife, Anne Hathaway. Really adorable. And you can get all kinds of delicious tea gifts in there at the tea caddy, fittingly. Another really cool detail, you gotta look up for this one over at the sportsman shop. There's a couple chimneys up here, and those are not working chimneys, yet it appears that Bert and the rest of the chimney sweeps have had to work up here because they're covered in soot. That's because the Imagineers, of course, wanted it to appear like these were actually chimneys that worked, as opposed to just decoration. Another cool detail, if you look at the windows of the sportsman shop up there, you can see that there's a few crests. Those together, if you overlay them, make the Union Jack, which is of course the flag of the United Kingdom. And each one is the respective countries. So one's England, one's Scotland, and one's Northern Ireland. Where's Wales though? Isn't Wales involved? I don't see Wales. If you're from Wales or the United Kingdom in general and can educate me, I would very much appreciate it. I have an answer to the flag question. So when it was originally created, like a bajillion years ago, not a bajillion, that's dramatic, the countries that were represented were England, and Wales was a part of England, and then Ireland, and then Scotland, which is why those three original flags combined together make the Union Jack. So those may not be accurate anymore. Obviously, Wales is its own thing now. Ireland has Northern Ireland and regular Ireland. So there you go. I just learned that from a very kind cast member here in the Sportsman Shop. Perhaps my favorite detail in the United Kingdom Pavilion is that this street in the back, does it look familiar to you? Well, if you've seen Mary Poppins, it might, because this street back in the back of the United Kingdom Pavilion was actually designed by using concept art from Mary Poppins. Doesn't it just feel like we're on Cherry Tree Lane back here? I certainly think so, and it makes it seem like it's going to be a seamless transition when they add in that Mary Poppins attraction. We don't really know much about it yet, but I do know I'm really excited for it. We are headed into country number 3 now, and we're going to get a little bonus fun fact as we're walking in there. This bridge I'm about to cross was designed after a bridge called the Port des Arts, which was originally in Paris, and it was a pedestrian bridge that crossed the Seine River, but unfortunately was torn down in the 1970s. However, that's what the Imagineers used to design this bridge. Bonjour and welcome to France. We are in our 3rd country, one of my personal favorites, mostly because of the eating and drinking here. There's lots of cheese. Très magnifique. But I've talked about it before on the channel. One of my favorite fun facts about the France Pavilion is about the Eiffel Tower right there. The Imagineers built it to 1/10 the size of the actual Eiffel Tower, but then they made these buildings and facades and used forced perspective to make it seem taller than it actually is. But one thing that could ruin that forced perspective, a bird. If a bird were to sit on this Eiffel Tower, it would absolutely ruin the illusion that it's much taller than it is. So they actually had to put things that a bird would be able to actually land on it, and they played distress signals of a bird in danger, so that way birds don't want to land on it and they don't ruin the illusion that that's the real Eiffel Tower. If you wander along the riverbanks here, I love this little detail of different paintings. And if you look, there's little books for sale and knickknacks. Because if you were to actually go to Paris, you would see a lot of this along the bridges, along the river and the streets. You would see artists posted up and painting the gorgeous landscapes around them. You'd be able to buy some little knickknacks. So you can actually see here that somebody's been working on a landscape of exactly what's in front of us. Another great little landscape detail, if you look from the bridge or down into the water, you're going to see that it's banked by these gorgeous flowers and this gorgeous park. That was actually inspired by the very famous French painting, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte. I'm so sorry, but it's an 1884 painting by Georges Seurat, and that is what this is to replicate, and that's what inspired the look of this park. Salam from Morocco, what I think is the most beautiful pavilion in all of Epcot, and it may come as a surprise to you that this is the only pavilion that had government involvement when it came to building their country at Epcot. The King of Morocco wanted to make sure that it was represented beautifully and represented well when it was in America, so we actually sent over Moroccan craftsmen to help construct this absolutely stunning pavilion, which, going back to what we were talking about earlier, how some of them are bigger than others when you start walking back, that's why this is one of the bigger pavilions, and people think it ends right here with this archway, but no, it goes back way further, and it's like an Instagram dream come true because the entire thing is so stunningly gorgeous.
Come on, you can sit down here, guys. We're inside.
One of my favorite fun details to listen for is if you come into the back of the marketplace, you can actually hear people in the back. You'll hear them trading. You'll hear them talking about different things. You'll hear chickens. You'll hear people talking. You'll hear people listen to the radio. All kinds of detail. And a lot of people don't realize that all of that is happening while you're back here. And all of that noise is used to make it really feel like you're in a Moroccan market. I mean, just look at this incredible fountain. A lot of people don't even realize this is all the way back here, and it's absolutely stunning. That gorgeous lantern. There's even tile work on the ceiling and the woodwork. Ugh, it's gorgeous. The way they make it seem like it is deeper and bigger than it actually is they do all these different layers where like you can see through this archway, but then you see another archway and another building and yet another archway. That's how they make it seem like it's even bigger than it is when this is already one of the biggest pavilions to go walk through. It's also one of the quietest ones, so if you need a little place to sit down and have a break or something, this is a good one to come to. But isn't this just gorgeous? I love it so much. Konnichiwa from Japan, where there's a few cute little details we gotta talk about, like this awesome statue right behind me. You can find it at the right-hand side of the pavilion. As you're looking into it, look to the right and you'll see it, and it's a lantern that celebrates the gift of light. Now, it was a gift from the Emperor Hirohito to Roy O. Disney when Walt Disney World opened in 1971. But Epcot didn't exist then, so this lived in the Polynesian, and then when Epcot opened in 1982, they fittingly moved it to the Japan Pavilion. One of my favorite details in World Showcase is this incredible pagoda in the Japan Pavilion. It's designed at the Hiryuja Temple in Nara, Japan, and each of those 5 stories represents one of the Buddhist elements. Starting from the bottom, you've got earth, water, fire, wind, and heaven. Another great little detail is at the torii gate here in the water, and you can notice if you look at the bottom of it, they've added in barnacles and weathering to imply the age of this shrine, as many of the ones you'd find in Japan are centuries old. Howdy y'all, we've made it to America. Well, we've been in America this whole time, but specifically now we're in the American Adventure Pavilion. Now, you may have heard of forced perspective, which is a trick the Imagineers use to make things appear taller, like the Eiffel Tower over in France. But did you know they could actually use forced perspective to make things look smaller than they actually are? That's right, the main building in the American Adventure that holds the American Adventure show is actually a 5-story building, but the Imagineers designed it so that it looked more like a 3-story building, because in colonial America at the time this style of building would be designed, they didn't have 5-story buildings, they were all 2 to 3 stories. But they needed a building large enough to hold the big auditorium, to hold such a complex show, so it's in reality a 5-story building. But to make it look smaller than it actually is, they used over-large bricks down at the bottom, they used these large box tree hedges, they used windows that weren't the right proportions, and your eye tricks you into believing this is actually only 3 stories tall. Another cool thing about the American Adventure Pavilion is their use of color. As you can imagine, there are 3 colors that they primarily use as the palette here: red, white, and blue. And whenever they plant flowers, they make sure they're red or white flowers. Of course, there's gonna be a little green in there, but they also make sure that the color palette here is red, white, and blue. That's why they've got blue tiles in the fountain. That's why they've got the red, white, and blue flags, the red brick, and of course the blue sky, plus a lot of white on the columns and the accents. And speaking of the white, it actually takes 4 different shades of white to all appear like they're the same shade. John Hench, who's a legendary Imagineer and a master of color, he knew that because of things like the sun, the shadows, the angles, you were going to have to use different shades of white throughout the pavilion, but really, your eye thinks they're all the same shade of white. Ciao, and welcome to Italia. We're going to be talking about this giant, clock tower right here. It's called the Campanile Clock Tower, and again, I'm going to just apologize this whole video for how I can't pronounce anything, but the one here in Walt Disney World is a 1/5 reproduction of the real one that's of course in Italy. But what's also interesting about the clock tower is that it's actually on the wrong side of the piazza here. When Disney was designing the piazza and World Showcase in general, they realized that the tall clock tower threw off the balance when you were looking at World Showcase because it's next to the American Adventure, which has one of the tallest buildings, so the clock tower threw it off and there were too many tall things right next to each other, so they decided to flip it and put it on the wrong side of the piazza, making it a mirror image of the real version in Italy. Guten Tag, we have made it all the way to Germany. Couple things to talk about here, including St. George right there slaying the dragon. St. George is the patron saint of soldiers, so you will see a statue of him in a lot of German towns throughout the actual country of Germany, which is why, of course, there's one here in the pavilion as well. Overlooking the Kaufhaus here, you'll actually see 3 gentlemen up there. This is modeled after a Kaufhaus in Freiburg, and those 3 gentlemen helped rule over the empire from 1273 to 1918, which isn't that long ago. I mean, it's a century ago. Anyway, those gentlemen up there are Philip I, Charles V, and Ferdinand I, and the one in actual Germany in Freiburg also has Maximilian I, but they had to cut him for scale, so sorry, Max. Did you know Germany was originally supposed to have an attraction? That's right, there was going to be a Rhine River cruise where you'd sail down the Rhine River and you'd learn about different things in the country. But obviously that never happened, but you can still see evidence of it here. Like this giant mural near the beer garden. That was supposed to be part of the attraction. And allegedly, if you look at pictures on the internet that have pictures of aerial views of Epcot, you can see a big show building back there that the attraction would have been in, but it doesn't exist. Ni hao and welcome to China. This is another one of the most beautiful pavilions in my opinion. There's a lot of detail to look at, including if you look up on the ceiling, the roofs of these buildings, you're going to see some animal figurines and they're all facing a certain gentleman who's looking out this way. I'm not going to tell you who it is though, because I already did in a different video where it's details of Epcot all over, a couple other fun facts not shared in this video. So if you want to learn more about the story of those little animals up there, you're going to have to go watch that video too. But don't worry, we've got some more fun facts as we head into the pavilion right now. This pavilion is just so pretty and I love all of the detail, but for this next thing we actually got to come into the large prayer house here in the middle, which is where the Circle Vision movie, Reflections of China, soon it will be replaced by Wondrous China, is playing. Hello! But when you get in here, look up at the ceiling, which you're going to want to do anyway because it's absolutely stunning. And you'll see at the very top there's this incredible medallion, and it features a phoenix, which represents peace, and a dragon, which represents power, and the two of them together represent marriage. Another cool detail in the China pavilion is that the back of the pavilion is supposed to represent being in a busy street fair in a market, and this store is actually called the House of Good Fortune. But if you go all the way to the back here, it definitely reminds you of being outside in the street fair. You've got the hanging lanterns and the carts, like people have been pushing them. This is also where that movie exits, right here. And what you can see is that while it's not a full theater, it's still a little difficult for people to exit, and that's on purpose. They made it hard for you to exit. They made it so you'd have to wait for somebody and kind of squeeze your way out because they wanted to replicate the busy streets of China as you exit your way into the street market. Hey, we're in Norway now, and we've got, of course, fun facts to share about this pavilion. The first thing, look up at this building right here. It's actually a stave church. There used to be at least 1,000 of them all over Norway. They were pretty much the central location of every village, but now there's only 28. Can you believe that? That's crazy. Not counting, of course, this replica right here in the Norway Pavilion at Epcot. But you can go in there if you want. A lot of people don't realize it. It's actually an exhibit about the Nordic gods, the Viking gods, and you're going to recognize some names like Loki or Thor. Sound familiar? Another cool detail to look for in this pavilion is up on the roofs of some of the buildings, you'll actually see grass and flowers. That's not a prop, that's actually grass, that's actually flowers, and they have to have a horticulture cast member go up there with clippers and cut it just like they would any other grass. You can't really see, but here we are. There's actually a sword back in the back of that waterfall, but you can't see it when the water's running, but it seems like a hero lost his sword at some point. So if you ever happen to be back here and the waterfall is not on, you can definitely see it. Actually, you can kind of see it. I'm gonna try. I think that's it. Like right here, where's my finger? There. Another cool one I love here is that if you look up at this little figure as you're headed towards Frozen Ever After, doesn't he look familiar? Hey, Kristoff, got your ice pick and everything. A lot of people know that the former resident of Frozen Ever After was that Viking boat ride named Maelstrom. And while there's some obvious nods to Maelstrom, for example, the track is the same, you get in the same boats, there's a couple more subtle ones, including in the standby queue. At one point you can look up and see a little bit of a little model of a standing polar bear. That's a nod to the polar bear in the attraction. You can see the puffins who are at the end of the attraction in the ride in Frozen Ever After still, and there's something over at the Royal Summer House. But for now, we're going to see Anna and Elsa and getting on that boat. Another great Maelstrom nod can be found in the Royal Summer House, which is located next door to the attraction. This is where you can meet Anna and Elsa, but there are a bunch of tapestries hanging on the wall, and one of them has the iconic three-headed troll from Maelstrom. So make sure you take a look at that while you are in there ready to meet Anna and Elsa. Hola from Mexico. We've made it to our last country around the world, and to see the fun facts on this one, we have got to go on a special tour. A special Grand Fiesta tour, to be exact. Some of you may remember that the original attraction here in the Epcot Pavilion was called El Rio del Tiempo, and it was still a slow-moving boat ride, and it took you through Mexico. Now it's called the Grand Fiesta Tour, and it features the three caballeros, but there's still a few nods to the original attraction here. For example, when you get to the festival, the Dia de los Muertos, you're going to see a lot of dolls, and those are from the original attraction. Also, they were modeled in the Small World style, except for they're made with paper mache so that they look like they should be a part of Dia de los Muertos. And that's not the only attraction that has recycled characters in this ride. Also, if you remember the Mickey Mouse Revue, which was the original resident in the Mickey's PhilharMagic Theater, it had a bunch of different character animatronics and it did some songs. The animatronics in this ride of the three caballeros, Jose, Panchito, and Donald, are taken from Mickey Mouse Revue. So they recycle a lot, which is kind of fun. Well, that is a wrap on my Easter eggs and details around the world. Hopefully you had fun following along. What's your favorite pavilion and World Showcase? Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, friends, make sure to rate, review, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram at AllEars.net, and until next time, y'all, I'm Molly, and it's been magical. Bye! Adios! Hadet! Zaijan! Ciao! Guten Nacht! Bye, y'all! Sayonara! Masalina! Au revoir! Pip pip, mate! Goodbye, eh? Want to see more of my videos? Click over here. Want to subscribe? You can do that right here. And also, ring that notification bell to make sure you get instantly notified anytime we post a new video. Thanks for following. See you real soon.